Today on All Things 80s, it's a sherbet overload. Welcome back to All Things 80s. Now, as I'm still here in the UK, I have been in search of many of the things I remember from my 80s childhood, and I'm very happy to say they still have many of the sherbet sweets that I enjoyed as a child. And before I get on to opening these, tasting them, describing them, I thought I should explain what sherbet is. Now, it's basically powder, but I had to go online to get the exact description so I can just convey that to you guys. So Wikipedia tells us, sherbet in the United Kingdom and other Commonwealth countries is a fizzy powder containing sugar and flavouring and an edible acid and base. The acid may be tartaric, citric or malic acid, and the base may be sodium bicarbonate, sodium carbonate, magnesium carbonate, or a mixture of these. To this is added a large amount of sugar to mask the unappetizing flavour of the reactive powders, icing sugar and fruit or cream soda flavouring. The acid-carbonate reaction occurs upon presence of moisture, saliva, and it becomes fizzy. So from reading that, it sounds pretty awful, and I guess if we are to break it down, it is a terrible thing, but it was tasty as a child. Now, I found 3 of the brands that I used to buy a lot as a child. I'm very happy to say that this one, which is Double Dip, is more or less as I remember it. Of course, the boy and girl depicted here have been updated for, modern times. The Dib Dab, again, is more or less as I remember it. This one, however, is not at all how I remember it. On first glance, it looks the same. However, this is a plastic container, and the top is also plastic. Now, when I was buying these, it was made of thick paper, and the licorice stick was actually exposed. Obviously, health and safety these days wouldn't permit that. And so I'm just curious as to how this one is going to work, because when I had it, it was a licorice straw. This is described as licorice dip. So when I had these, you would bite the end off the licorice, which was a sealed end, and the internal part of the licorice stick was a straw, and you could actually suck the sherbet into your mouth, which, thinking about that now, is not the best thing in terms of health and safety, because that was like a real choking hazard. And from the 10p mixed bag video I did the other day, these were the flying saucers, which do, or they should, they contain sherbet inside. So I think what we'll do is we'll actually open one of these. As I mentioned in that video, these were not one of my favorites. This exterior shell, it's made of rice paper, which is an edible substance, but it's just like styrofoam. I'm just going to bite the top off. That's horrible. But inside, there's nothing. Good Lord. This is what's happened here. Alright, the sherbet has kind of solidified a bit. I don't know if you can see that. That's not a good example of sherbet. Maybe I've had this exposed to the air too long. I'll show you a better example of sherbet. First up, we'll do Dib Dab. Pretty much the same dimensions as I remembered in the 80s. The packaging, very similar, which is good. I like things to stay as they were. So this one is described as lemon flavour sherbet with a strawberry flavour lolly. And this was like a dual purpose type candy. The first one, or the first way of eating it, would be to take the lolly, and it is covered in sherbet just now. So the idea would be you would take the lolly, give it a lick. Oh yeah, it's fizzy. Remove that sherbet. Now that it's moist, stick it in, and it gets coated with more sherbet, which you then suck off. Did I just say that? The other way of using this was to use this as like a shovel. So you can actually go in here, scoop up a whole wad of sherbet, and there's your sherbet right there. So as someone who doesn't do drugs and never has done drugs, I can't really comment on cocaine use, but I suspect, because I've seen it on TV, I suspect this is what a mountain of cocaine would look like. So you could then shovel that into your mouth. It's actually, I mean, it is delicious, and it does give that sort of effervescence fizz in your mouth. But this was Dib Dab, very good. Next up, Double Dip. And you know what, I don't really have to, it's the same idea, but what I'll show you is the swizzle stick. So this one is, it's two flavors. So you got orange sherbet and cherry sherbet. And I don't know why, but it seems as if you get more cherry than you do orange. If you look at the sizes here, I don't know. Orange and cherry flavor fizz dips with a swizzle stick. And I do remember the swizzle stick. I'm hoping it's the same. I'm just going to open the swizzle stick because we've seen what sherbet looks like. We know, we can imagine how orange and cherry is going to taste, because this one was lemon. Yeah. So anyway, open the swizzle stick part, and let me see. Haven't held one of these since probably mid-80s. Yeah. It even says on it, swizzle stick. Same concept as the Dip Dab. You know, stick it in your mouth, get it wet. Oh my god, that just sounds awful as well. But anyway, stick it in your mouth, get it nice and wet, and dip it in. Okay. Okay. Stick it in your mouth, get it wet, and dip it into that powder, and then suck it off. Oy. Anyway, similar concept. Yeah, it's nice to see one of these, and it's nice that it does say swizzle stick, because I remember mine as a kid said swizzle stick. So that was a swizzle stick which came with your double dip, which also sounds a bit naughty as well. So there we go, but this one is disappointing. This was the one that I would buy in a paper tube with an exposed licorice straw. This one, however, all plastic, all sealed, and it says here, twist to open. And there we go. And is it a screw top? Kind of. You see, that's very disappointing. So you see the size of it, and it's the same size as I remember it. And like I said, this part was exposed licorice, which was solid licorice. So when you would take the licorice stick out of the packet, bite the end off, which was sealed, you were then left with a straw that would allow you to suck that powder and hit the back of your throat and choke. And I guess nowadays that would result in a lawsuit. This one is just another idea where you probably, oh, that's weird, this is all solidified. See that? Maybe you have to give it a... Not really. Oh, there we go, made a mess. But yeah, this was licorice stick, and it smells just like licorice. Wow, that's a good memory. But anyway, this is another one stick it in your mouth, get it wet, dip it in, and stop saying suck, and enjoy the sherbet. That's disappointing because the straw part was very cool, and I guess you were kind of extra cool if you could suck the sherbet without choking. Wow, I did not expect this video to end up like this. So anyway, there's a mess of sherbet, which always did cause a mess because, you know, being a very fine powder, it would get everywhere and all over your face and your clothes. So on the one hand, I'm very happy that Dip Dab and Double Dip are pretty much as they were. I'm not happy at the sherbet fountain with its licorice stick not being as it was, but I do understand that in 2019 we have very many health and safety and food regulations to follow, so that's probably why they had to change the packaging there. But that was the sherbet overload from the 80s. Hope you enjoyed it. Please like, please subscribe. See you next video.